at the Union Buildings. When that happens, we'll go there live. But let's get more insight, I guess, into what this package is all about. We're joined in studio by our economics editor, Thandeka Gqubule-Mbeki. Thandeka, thank you very much indeed for your time. She's our economics editor. In terms of this plan, how different is it going to be from the tenets of the NDP?
It borrows a lot from the language and the ideas and the thinking of the NDP. I think that the documents that we have so far, which are almost a preface to what the President may say, those documents are from the National Planning Commission, and they indicate much of the NDP thinking, but there's also new language. For example, there's new Keynesian language, which talks about full employment, and that's very interesting.
What does that mean?
Full employment means that pushing employment to beneath 5%. Classically, it means that a whole slew of instruments, monetary policy instruments would be used, and fiscal policy instruments would be used to assist the economy to create more jobs and to push employment to less than 5%. Now, when an economy reaches those levels of employment, it is said to have reached full employment. So this is a huge and a grand ambition on South Africa's part. It's the first time we have an indication of formal official Keynesian thinking by our government.
It's a huge task, isn't it? Because unemployment is sitting at around, what, 27.2% in the
In fact, we've got the kind of unemployment that you find in war zones. We have the kind of unemployment that would create social disruption and civil unrest in other communities. We have got the kind of unemployment levels that led to conditions in Northern Africa called the Arab Spring.
Yeah. I mean, Thandeka, South Africans will be sitting at home watching this stimulus package being announced and some of the details being revealed, and they'll be wondering, you know, how will this work? You know, are they likely to see results ASAP?
Normally, effective stimulus packages, such as the one that was introduced by the Obama administration at the beginning of his tenure, as well as the European stimulus package, which was introduced by the European governments together with the European Central Bank, they're normally quite effective. Now, what happened at the end of the Obama administration is that the Americans had managed to, throughout the Yellen years at the U.S. Federal Reserve, to push unemployment to beneath 5%. So this is doable if the right monetary policy and fiscal policy instruments are applied to a recessionary situation. Now, in America, the stimulus package was very comprehensive. It was a significant portion of GDP, north of 5%, and typically stimulus packages have to be in that region as a percentage of GDP for them to have any significant impact. Secondly, the stimulus package in the United States had certain tax breaks for affected sectors. For example, our economy has been brought into a recession by the deep contraction in the agricultural sector. If there were any tax benefits that would accrue to commercial farmers in particular, then we would begin to say that that sector is being appropriately and impactfully addressed. Then the other thing about a stimulus package is that it normally goes with monetary easing, which cheapens the value of the money and lowers the cost of capital in the economy. So you would we've seen 2 decades of a cheaper dollar, and that had the effect of improving employment and giving growth a chance in America. So we are unlikely to see a monetary aspect to the stimulus package, or at least I'll be very surprised if there is a nod given to the central bank to sit on its hands or to begin to move interest rates closer to zero, as the ECB did and the US Fed did during the challenge of the global recession, rather.
Dumisani, let me just bring you in here. I mean, in order for this package to be effective and be implemented apace, it needs societal as well as political support, isn't it? Does the president have that?
Well, you would expect him to, as the president, to have that. But you know, part of me, it reminds me of the then President Thabo Mbeki's speech when he opened Parliament, I forgot the year, he spoke about the age of hope. I think more than anything else, what this stimulus package is attempting to do is to inspire that sense of hope and belief and inspiration that things will turn around for the better. But I still maintain that I think we have got a ruling party that remains challenged when it comes to implementation of its own programs. So it remains to be seen.
So where are we in your gauge in the whole term of the Ramaphoria? Where are we at that stage?
Well I think in the last few months it's been challenged, particularly based on the rise in the cost of living. And because of that, in the Ramaphoria issue, perhaps we need to look at it from a class position as well. It may be the case that some in the top structures of society are quite happy with his performance. Perhaps there could be those that are benefiting from the investment that is securing. But to the extent that it begins to filter to the grassroots, in this country, that remains to be seen. But I think from where I'm sitting, a whole lot of things in this country can be better if the capacity of the state is enhanced.
Thandeka, he's been, sworn in over 7 months now. What's your assessment of, obviously being around the world, we've got from Saudi Arabia, from China, Japan latest. Have you been doing the count, these intentions of investment? How's his performance been so far?
Well, I mean, investment cannot make up for real structural, meaningful, substantial changes and initiatives to save the domestic economy. And investment cash takes some time to flow through into the economy to have effect. The recession is here now, and you need immediate fiscal and monetary action by the leaders to restore hope and investment, domestic investment in the economy. Now, what worries me about this package is that it may just be that, packaging, rather than the real substance of a real stimulus package. I would be keen to hear about the size of it. If the figures are as what I've heard, like between 43 and 48 billion, I would be concerned that it were too little to stimulate any real meaningful change. And what I'm hearing is that it's a rearrangement of infrastructure spend that was previously allocated to different purposes and different functions, and now it's been consolidated and pooled and released as a stimulus package. For me, a stimulus package, a real one, is new money in the economy.
I mean, the key drivers of growth would be tourism, would be manufacturing, would be infrastructure, isn't it? Is that where we're aiming?
You see, the Obama, I keep getting back to the American example, targeted very specific industries and sectors for regeneration. And they were quite deliberate and precise in targeting those. I would like to see how tight we are and how precise we are in terms of targeting ailing industries. We are renowned to be deindustrializing, and that our manufacturing sector has been ailing for quite a while. What is the stimulus package going to do to reverse that crucial trend? Because manufacturing and the real economy have to create jobs.
I heard a couple of days ago Ibrahim Patel, Minister of Economic Development, saying that corruption and state capture could take away as much as 27 billion rand from the GDP. I mean, how concerned is the president with regards to this and in reforming this ailing economy?
Well, look, that has been part of the challenge, that to what extent do these state institutions that have been established to safeguard democracy have been performing. Because if they have been performing pretty well, the issues that they are dealing with now around the state capture, which is nothing less than the manipulation of state, of government processes, particularly procurement, to benefit a few. It shouldn't have happened, or it should have been at a minimal scale, or at some extent, some high-profile politician or public sector official, they could have been arrested in the process. So it's one thing to have a democratic regime. It's another to have the institution that have been established to do that, to perform effectively. This is why I keep going back to that point, that to a greater extent, In fact, part of the challenge that Cyril Ramaphosa faces right now is the sense that he's leading a hapless, is that the word? A hapless state. So when things keep good, if the cost of living keeps going up and government says, actually there's nothing we can do, then who should the citizen rely on? Who's the custodian of their socio-economic, well-being? So it comes to me then, if Thandeka is correct, then in terms of analysis, in terms of the gap, in the package itself, it creates that sense of either a hapless state, which will create a sense of despondency by the citizenry, and the ruling party, I'm sure, wouldn't want to have that a year before the election. So it's an economic issue, it's a political issue, but it's also a sense of to what extent do citizens have a state that indeed is a developmental and they can rely on. And lastly, do we have an appropriate political leadership to take care of its citizens? Yeah.
We're still monitoring the scenes there. I think the president is about to walk in.